Other than that, we're sort of at the missing a few, the word either and brackets, and then we've still got a few problems with links in the e-plan where some of the links are taking people to the wrong place. So that's in the signs section of the plan that we're seeking your approval to correct that.
Thank you. So the recommendations, any questions on those? Any clarification required? Recommendations on page 6, that the committee receive a report and resolves to approve the corrections. Someone to move in that direction? Mayor Gibson, thank you. Seconded by Mayor Russell. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for that, Lois. Then the update on the mediation process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something that I'm planning to bring to you every month, each meeting that you have. Just to give you an idea of where we're at with the mediation process and when we eventually move into hearings, as well as mediations are resolved or not. Just keep you up to date, really. I've separated out into 3 different parts. The first being letting you know in the last month what topics have already had positions set by the subcommittee. And we had 2 meetings, the 4th and 25th of March last month, and got through 12 of the topics. So we're moving along pretty quickly with an intent to have most of the positions set through April and on the 11th of May subcommittee meeting. So there'll only be a few left for later in the year, because we're planning on getting into the mediations pretty quickly in May. So then the lawyers have provided this table, which is a great way just to keep you up to date on what's happening with direct discussions. We've explained direct discussions to you previously, that we would go out on some appeal points that were very broad, and we thought they were unintentionally broad, or if perhaps someone hadn't submitted on something, so that they wouldn't have any standing to appeal. We've gone back and we've said, why do you think that you have a standing to appeal on this? All those sorts of questions. So the lawyers have set this table up since they're the ones contacting all the appellants and the 274 parties, and they've set it out into 3 different parts, and each of the headings are explained at the bottom of page 9. So this first one is appeal points that have been withdrawn. So we have contacted, or the lawyers have contacted different people where they feel that perhaps there were unintended consequences from their appeal point. So if you take, for instance, the very first one, the Buller Conservation Group, they appealed against this inconsistent use of the word site in the plan, and that came up, Lois might be able to correct me on this, was 157 or 257 times in the plan in all sorts of different places where the Buller Conservation Group weren't even that interested. So the lawyers went back to the Buller Conservation Group and explained this to them and said that in every instance where site is mentioned, you have now appealed that, and so that provision can't be operative. So it's having this huge consequence across the plan. And they said that was not our intention at all. And so they wrote to the court to withdraw that appeal point, and the court has confirmed that it's been withdrawn. So that's the very good news story. All the ones in the first part where appeal points have been withdrawn. Other ones where appeal points have been resolved by consent, that basically means all the parties get together, decide on an agreed position outside of going into mediation, let the court know, and then the court fills out all the appropriate forms and says, okay, that appeal is resolved because you've agreed. Then we say, yes, that's fine. So we're hoping that some of the ones in the 3rd section will come under those resolved by consents as we work through them. So these are ones in the 3rd, under the 3rd heading, appeals, consent documents that have been prepared and circulated for all the parties to consider. So the lawyers have been working hard to send out documents saying, let me just use the first one as an example. Forest and Bird have pointed out correctly that significant Indigenous biodiversity is a defined term, and that's the acceptable and used term in higher order documentation, and that in some places in the plan we have significant biodiversity, and they would just like to extend it to significant Indigenous biodiversity so that everyone understands this defined term. So the lawyers have gone back to Forest and Bird and everyone else who had an interest in their appeal. They might be opposing what Forest and Bird want to do, supporting having that added in, or just be interested in what's going to happen in this space. So they're neutral and haven't said they have a feeling one way or the other. To ask them how they feel about just adding this word Indigenous into this, so that they've got the defined term. So we're just waiting to get everyone's feedback back, saying whether they agree or not. And if we can get agreement across all parties, then that one little point can be agreed and get this consent order from the court. So I'm on page 9, but that list goes on to page 10 as well. There are a lot of parties that have been contacted where it just seems like it would be possible to get people to agree without all having to be in the room together. So more of those are still being worked on. The third thing that I'm going to tell you in these reports is any updates from the court, what contact we've had with them. So the Environment Court has confirmed that the commissioner who's going to be leading mediation meetings, so will probably be the mediator for most of the meetings, will be Kate Wilkinson. We met with Commissioner Wilkinson and her mediation manager last week to discuss administrative stuff that you really won't be interested in. It was about venues and numbers and timetabling, that sort of thing. So we're working through that at the moment, and in fact we've been working very closely and long with the lawyers to try and set up the first the timetabling, so scheduling it. And at this stage, it's in with the court as of yesterday for them to approve the draft schedule. It looks like we will be having mediation meetings every second week from the 12th of May until the first week of December. So it's going to be a huge process. So you can imagine the administration is going to be a busy time sorting out who can get, who needs to be in all the different meetings and the venues. So I will not tell you any of those details in my reports, but I'll just let you know what's happening so that you can keep informed. Have you got any questions on any of those things? Is there anything else you would like in the report that I can give you?
Councillor. Yes, thank you. Councillor, is it Councillor Sutherland?
Rutherford? No, he's trying to get the sound. Won't come.
There's Councillor Rutherford.
Right, now we can hear you, I think.
No.
No, that was me, Chris. He's on mute.
Yes, exactly.
Hang on.
Could I just ask, while Councillor is sorting out the minor technical thing, just to reaffirm the timetable, Joe. So
Yes.
we're expecting to start mediation in May, about every 2 weeks, and that'll be planned some weeks ahead.
Yes.
And the expectation is it'll run through continuously till December. Is that what you're thinking?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And noting that our planner, Lois, will be away for a couple of months in July, August or something like that.
Yep. July into early
July.
August.
Yeah.
That's right. And we have Sage Planning stepping in and helping us as our representative, or as the committee's representative planner for some topics that will be occurring in that time.
Yeah, so they were going to be dealing with those topics anyway, so the timetable is carefully arranged.
That's,
right.
Yeah. Oh, Miss Councillor.
Yeah, good. Councillor, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm just wondering. I note that one of the appeals is informally withdrawn. What's the difference between informally withdrawn and withdrawn?
They have not yet sent in a withdrawal application to the court. So
Thank you.
they've said yes, they're happy for it to be withdrawn.
Thank you.
Good question.
Daryl,
Yes,
thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment for those on the joint committee that have never been part of this process before. It's always the process to book in a forward schedule of these mediation meetings, and we've heard every 2 weeks from May to December. I think the way I'd look at those is they're reserved in the calendar. We'll have a schedule, and appellants will be told what the timetable is and when they can turn up for the first few meetings. But what is very difficult to predict is the pace at which any of the appeals will either be settled or not settled, as the case may be. And what you generally tend to find is that we might have a really good run where parties pretty quickly can achieve agreement, and they get the memorandums off the court, and the court, provides the due authorizations around that. And so we could move through quite quickly, but there'll be no doubt some things that are quite sticky and could take several mediations and may not even be resolved. So just think of those things as days set aside in the calendar. What's really difficult to predict is the pace that we might be able to work through these things. Thanks.
Thanks for that comment. Yes.
So, is it a case that even though these mediations are reserved, negotiations can carry on and people continue to resolve?
Ask perhaps
Yes,
Lois or Joe.
that can happen, and we've actually set 1 week aside for going back and dealing with any parts of appeals that haven't been resolved, because much of an appeal of the appeals might be resolved on a topic. They'll go point by point, resolve whatever points they can, and there might be just a few things that are still at issue. And then after, if it becomes apparent to the mediator, I would think, and everyone in the room, that there are some points that appellants are not going to agree on, then the next is the recourse going to the Environment Court, having a hearing. So it doesn't mean that a whole topic would go to hearing. If things can be resolved, they will be.
Thanks, Joe.
I'll just pick up on one other small detail concerning venues. There was some discussion at the committee meetings about whether mediation meetings would be held on the marae. This was just, I was present at the meeting last week with Commissioner Wilkinson, and I got the impression, I don't think it was firmly decided, that she was not in favour of that. Would that be correct, Joe?
Yes. It needs to be a neutral place. So we wouldn't be using council chambers unless we have no other option either.
So we're likely to be, say, at Shantytown or something like that.
That's right.
And the meetings got down into the detail of what happens for lunch if we're at Shantytown. That sort of detail. So all has to be dealt with, but just to keep committee members informed of where things are running at the moment. Okay, any other questions on this topic? I don't think, well, the recommendation is the committee receives the report. I'll move in that direction. Seconded by Councillor Gibson. All in favour, aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a really quick little paper here on updating some standing orders, just the one. We've always had a committee meeting every month, and a public notice has gone out informing the public as of such. But now that we're having a couple of committee meetings on the month as well, it seemed very inefficient and budget-wise, and also ineffective to have to put more than one public notice into the media outlets. And on was trying to figure out how best to approach it, and on undertaking a bit of research, discovered that actually we're a little bit behind the times in our standing orders, and that many councils, and in fact the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act has a different approach to what our standing order is. At the moment, our standing order on giving notice is that no more than 10 days and no less than 5 days before a meeting, we give notice. So if we have a meeting on the 10th and a meeting on the 30th, we can't at the moment give the same notice because it would be more than 10 days out in between. So I'm suggesting that we look at the highlighted wording to slot in. Just to give you a little bit of background that on how you can make a decision before we perhaps look at the wording, is that the standing orders say that as long as 75% of people at this meeting agree to change a standing order, we can do that. So all I'm suggesting is that all meetings scheduled for the following month must be publicly notified together with all the information, not more than 14 working days, not less than 5 working days before the end of the current month. So it would mean I would advertise the month prior, close to the end of the month prior, for all meetings in the following month under one notice. And I think that's probably more convenient for the public as well. They're more likely to see one big notice than a scattergun approach. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take those. Otherwise,
Thank you, Joe. Any questions on this matter? Seems pretty straightforward.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
It does.
Standard procedure, really, isn't it?
Okay, if there are no questions, the recommendation on page 11 to receive the report and make the amendment to change to committee standing order 7.1. Someone move in that direction.
Happy to,
Moved
thanks,
by
Rex.
Mayor Lash, thank you. Seconded by Mayor Gibson. All in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. That's helpful. Moving on to the financial report, the 28th of February.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that you're all getting pretty familiar with how the financial reports work at the moment, and we're not getting a lot of change. You know, we're just the same things are increasing as we use, obviously, staff time, legal advice, things like that. So what I do at point 2 every month is I just update the figures that come out of this latest financial report. So they're what's are in the tables below. And I just thought that I would just take this paper as read and answer any questions you might have about the tables or the figures.
Thank you. Any questions on the finance report? Yeah, Mayor Lash, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's rather late in the day to be asking this question, but I'm still getting concerned the fact we've got the continual unfavourable variance. Who does the responsibility of ensuring the accountability with the budget sit with?
Committee.
And
So,
basically, we're receiving the reports acknowledging we've got this variance continuously there, but we're not actually trying to address the repetition and the regularity of these variances, are we? So
yeah, well, it's the same reason the whole time, and it happened very early in this financial year. It was we hadn't anticipated having the hearings commissioners still employed into this financial year. So that happened, and it went on until September with the meetings. So if you have a look on table 1, you'll see that in the variance column of the year to date, so it's the 3rd column in, it's the only one that's still got a red number. So all the rest of them are within the bounds of what we'd set for the budget for this financial year, is the hearings commissioner fee, and it hasn't gone up. but it also won't change throughout the whole year. So it was that unanticipated cost, and the committee was kept aware of that the whole time, and realised that it was just a necessary cost that we had to incur, at the time. So everything else is balancing along nicely, and we may still come in at budget.
Yeah.
It's just we're carrying that extra one. Yeah.
If I can, through the chair, thanks for that, Joe. And I am aware of that and where that sits. But is there anything going forward that's going to extend this, or we can foresee that it's going to extend this process out longer, where we're going to not lessen the variance, we're going to be extending the variance once again regarding the commissioners?
Not with the commissioners, but we may find that legal and consultant fees are higher than we'd budgeted for, now that we know that we're going to have so many weeks of mediation. So it's something that I will just keep a handle on in the new budget and keep you informed of.
Okay, thank you. Because I mean, it's we keep sort of gasping at how much we've sort of blown the budget, but it's that thought of we actually still don't have a defined end figure in sight.
No.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Gerald, do you want to comment on this?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we've talked about this before around the budget controls, but I'll just sort of go through it again. So first thing to say is the commissioners are finished and well finished now, so there's no more costs around the commissioners, they're gone. Although the commissioner costs were in a big part, while we've got some of the budget overruns, but a lot of that information came to the committee and as to the reasons why. In terms of costs going forward, this committee has and will continue to receive for approval contracts to employ consultants, and the legal fees as well, and so you're authorising that expenditure. And then in terms of signing off on invoices that come in under that authorised expenditure, that's what the staff here at the Regional Council do, including myself, as per the delegations register, to make sure that the invoices are accurate and reasonable, and also commensurate with what the contracts are that this committee has signed off on. Just to really acknowledging, so that's from a process perspective, but really just acknowledging, the issue that Mayor Lash is raising. Unfortunately, when you're in these legal processes, and it's not just RMA legal processes, it's even if you're in civil litigation or something like that, you're in the hands of the legal process, and it's not like purchasing 1,000 tonne of rock for a set price, and it's very, very difficult to try and estimate and predict what the costs are. Thanks.
Robbie, question through the chair to Daryl. I mean, you think we underestimated everything that it was going to cost? Because I was horrified at the last meeting. I was in the 7 minutes, and I'm still horrified.
Yes.
Because this is going on and on. It never comes down, even though the commissioners things happen. But now it's going to be consultants and lawyers and everything else. And I mean, it's terrifying.
Yes. So thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Gibson. Look, my unravelling of history here, and this predates me, is that embarking on this process, there was never a proper cost estimation exercise that was put up. I understand at one particular meeting, there was a conversation around how much do you think this might cost, and the number of 5 million was sort of talked about. And then suddenly that became the budget. But that was never informed by a proper.
You're probably right there, Gerald. Yeah, we've heard that regularly.
That's right. And so that's where I think people are tracking back to, that sort of casual conversation. Having said that, and coming back to my earlier point, in these exercises, very, very difficult to estimate what your costs are going to be and how your cash flow is going to be. But what we're trying to do, and certainly in the last couple of years, is make sure that this committee is well across every time you meet on the financials and where it's sitting and the reasons why.
Because this is terrifying for the ratepayer. They just don't know what's still coming. And and we're a committee and we've got to sign it off, and it's terrifying for me to be part of it.
Yes. Just one more comment, Mr. Chair, that I would say, and this is no consolation and should never be the, what justifies it all, but when you benchmark the costs of this exercise, which is trying to get one district plan across 3 districts, you benchmark that against other district planning exercises around New Zealand. This exercise has been significantly cheaper than what has been experienced around New Zealand, even for one district.
The horror was maybe more.
That's known, but that is the system that's been set up under the RMA.
I wonder if the public would have accepted it if they had known this from the start.
You didn't have any choice in the matter.
No, it's not.
Excuse me, Rex, Joe. Would you excuse me for 5 minutes? I've just got to take an urgent call from Wellington.
Yeah,
I'll be back shortly.
Yeah, Russell,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah. Okay, any other questions around the finance report? Oh, a point of clarification, Joe, the expenses of the Environment Court officials, that's covered by essentially the taxpayer, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we see Commissioner Wilkinson and 1 or 2 staff here and their travel expenses and accommodation and things like that, if it's any consolation, that's paid for by the taxpayer and not the ratepayer.
They're part of the court system, right?
Yes,
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on these? Could somebody move the receipt of the finance report? Moved by Chair Smith. Thank you. I'll second that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried. Thank you. The oh yes, of course. The next step in appointing a chair. So, as you've seen from the report and the correspondence, I'll stand down, retire, whatever the appropriate terminology is. To be clear, my reasoning for this is that on the one hand, I'm enjoying the role very much, but I've been doing it for 8 years, and it's not a good thing to have somebody as chair for forever. I bear that in mind, but also I bear in mind the life of each committee. So this is the 4th iteration that we've had of this joint committee. And if, as chair, I was to stay on until the plan becomes completely operative, which might be, say, 12 or 18 months away, it's effectively impacting the role of this committee. And I think it's appropriate that this relatively fresh committee gets the chance to appoint its own chair and set its own direction or not. So those are the reasons that I'd like to step down. As I've indicated also, I'm very flexible with respect to timing. Whatever it takes to get an appropriate chair, I always say it's better to get the right person than just any person to a timetable. So just let's see how that runs. I'm happy to help, but obviously I don't want to be involved in any way with the next appointment of the person. So there's a recommendation concerning the process for recruiting. Let's take that discussion. No, me Gibbs.
Thank you, Rex, for all the time you've spent on this. You enjoy it. I don't know if any of us do, but but thank you for that. You've done a lot of work. I do wonder though, and I know that it is mandated by the Local Government Commission that we have an independent chair, but at the point that we're at, is it worth appealing to the Local Government Commission or whoever the person is to have a rotational chair or Colin or chair rather than the extra expense of an independent chair? Throw that out there. Because I don't believe at this stage in time that we're in a process that is barely out of our control as a committee. Would an independent chair make any difference to that, or one of us chairing it rotationally, or Colin as well?
Any comments along those lines?
If I can, through the chair, I actually, support Tanya with her comments. It's interesting because, as she said, with where we are in the process, is it going to make a material difference or a legal difference? The other thing it does do is remove any further cost of having to advertise and get a new chair to the board. So there's a double cost-saving mechanism in there as well. But I support Tanya's point of view and question.
Yeah.
This is through the chair. This is a legislative requirement, isn't it, under the Ordering Council?
Correct.
So, what would be the process if that were to be the case? I mean, that would be quite an arduous process in itself, would it not?
Change.
To change
Yes.
the Ordering Council.
Yes.
Government General.
That's yeah.
If I could comment, if the committee failed to appoint an independent chair, what's going to happen? And the worst that could happen would be that the committee would not be happy with having one of their own members after a few months of seeing how it goes. And if the committee said, crumbs, this isn't working, we'll need to appoint an independent chair, then that would be the logical step. But my informal comment would be, I can totally understand where Gibson Mayor Lash are coming from.
I definitely support asking the question and seeing if we can get a change to the Ordering Council based on the stage and all the points Tanya's made. So I'm supportive of that approach.
Yeah,
I am too, but can the committee not decide because it's a legislative thing? So where does that go to decide?
Mr. Chairman, I think in a matter of process, what you would do is, I think you'd need to vote and take a vote on this if that's what you want to do. But presuming that the majority of the committee was minded to do this, the next step would be to staff would write formally to the local government commission, and then seek their advice on this matter and whether their views on it. Because you'd have to do that step, because you can't. My advice would be not to petition the Governor General straight away. You could work up through the officials of the commission. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, I understand.
I would move a motion supporting that.
Councillor Mayor Lash, yes, thank you.
Yes, sorry. I fully support them. I think Tanya just said that too. She fully supports that process. Look, it shows that we're being accountable as well. We're at this point where the costs are prohibitive and still rising, and we're looking at the process and what's involved. So I fully support taking that, what Daryl's just suggested, as the process, and let's get on and do it.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And thanks for your time as chair. I've only been involved in this on and off over the years, but I do, I go right back. I was around when this whole process kicked off. Look, I think you've done a wonderful job as chair. I don't think I fully understand why an independent chair is required, to the point of not maintaining having an independent chair, but instead doing it by rotation. Look, I would like to get your view on the work that you do outside committee, coordinating a coordination role with our staff, etc. There's going to be a huge workload coming on this committee, we've just heard, and to have a rotational chair and all the background work that chair will be required to do, and of course rotational once a meeting, I think we lose a certain cohesiveness if that was to be the case. In terms of the cost of an independent chair, in the big picture, we know this is going to end up something like 15 million before it's done and dusted. The cost of the independent chair is a relatively small portion of that. And I will add that I think to go through the process of applying to get permission not to have an independent chair, gee whiz, we could be through the whole process before that's even signed off. I support continuing with an independent chair, and gee whiz, Mr. Williams, you might even be there to the end. I don't know, but that's just my view. But obviously go along with the majority.
Thanks for the comment. Yes, I would say the role of the chair, about 10, maximum 20% is around the meetings. It's the liaison with Joe, with Lois, and with the lawyers. I mean, without being too precise, Joe and I would speak once or twice a week and have been for 5 years on matters of importance and matters of minor detail. So rotating the chair would not work. I mean, yeah, I don't think it would work. It'd be fine for the meetings, but not the continuing work in between.
In light of that, too, in light of what Councillor Rutherford has said, and also what Rex is saying, I don't think with the commitment we as mayors and chair in our own day-to-day obligations to our particular districts, region, etc. I wouldn't have the capacity, and I doubt where any of us would have the capacity to be able to put the time to this role that Rex is indicating, therefore I would support that we continue to engage, like Councillor Rutherford, an independent chair. In reality, you know your obligations. I know what my obligations are. As you do, Mayor Lash, we have heavy commitments, and this role, obviously, as Rex has said, this is 20% of the time. 80% of the time, Rex is dealing with other matters. We do not have the capacity.
I mean, I'll just give an example. Last week, when I was invited to meet with Commissioner Wilkinson and just understand the process of what was going on, and I was able to give a good background to the whole thing. It was probably a 2-hour meeting, but it had taken me an hour to prepare for it, and then half an hour to debrief afterwards. So you can easily spend half a day on stuff that this committee would never ever see. It's just going on in the background.
Chair. And through the chair, that also raises a concern for me with the institutional knowledge you have, Rex. You're bringing a new chair in at this point. Is that really going to be the best option for this committee going forward?
I wouldn't, on the one hand, this is a minor matter, and on the other hand, it's a very important matter.
It is.
Would you like to kick the can down the road for a month? I mean, after 8 years, another month's not going to make any difference to me. And just take your own soundings amongst yourselves.
The bottom line is we're trying to save money, and it just seems impossible.
Yeah, it probably is a good idea to, you know, if there's no rush to this decision.
Yeah.
Because all good points.
Yeah, all good points.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to see us have a vote on something like this. It's not appropriate. Councillor, sorry, Mayor Lash.
Yeah, I agree too. And Colin's brought up some very, very valid points. And, you know, we don't know quite what the workload's going to look like, you know, 6 months from here either with the elections coming up. So, and I know at the moment, personally, you know, I'm pretty much tapped out on what I'm dealing with, let alone taking on anything else. So I stood up to be mayor to do the best I can for Westland, and that didn't take into consideration stepping into, you know, a rotating chair position with the TTPP. It's the knowledge, you know, like Tanya's been there longer, I think, than any of us. Don't take that the wrong way, Tanya. But you know, your knowledge was greater than mine when I came to the table, and I relied on you to guide me, and it's been the same with Chris. And to put somebody new in that position is going to be difficult, because it's that knowledge that you build up through this whole process, which assists us to make the relatively informed decisions that we have to make, or support the actions that are required with this. And it's it's bloody significant. You know, the TTPP is our future, and it's important we get this right. And so it's important that how we manage this going forward is right as well. So yeah, I fully support actually taking a month to think about this, and we can have a conversation with each other and look at where we go, what we do, how we do it.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to move
Sorry.
recommendation 1, and in regards to recommendation 2, I would move that this committee decline your resignation pending further discussion.
Thank you.
And I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So the motion is, we've got the recommendations on page 16. The committee receives the report and declines to accept the resignation of the chair. And we'll just leave it at that. Any other comments on that motion? So all in favour of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Did we have a seconder?
Colin.
Chair Smith.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the motion is carried. So setting that aside, as chair, I acknowledge the comments. So we'll work through that. Just as a small matter of an aside, I was interviewed by a journalist yesterday from Local Democracy Reporter. So there could well be a story appearing concerning the resignation of the chair. I hope the journalist is listening in.
There already is one in circulation, Rex.
All right.
May I ask, Mr. Chair, what form of paper I could bring on this for your discussion next time?
That's something that you could discuss with the chair over the next little while.
All right.
I'll pick that up over. I'll talk to others, and I'll come back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's perhaps unexpected. Anything else for the agenda of this meeting?
I have some updates, but nothing else on the agenda.
Thank you. So, just while we're still formally the next meeting of this committee is on the 11th of May. I'll be on leave. The arrangement that we've got is that the host chair chairs the meeting. So this would be at Westland District Council. We're all comfortable with that, Mayor Lash?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So, all right. So as long as we're clear on that. Now, Joe, you had anything else? General business.
Because of the fullness of the timetabling for the mediation meetings, a lot of them are just going to clash with TTPP committee meetings. And to be honest, as long as I'm sending you the financial information, and I can, along with that, accompany just an email update on what's happening with the mediation process, there's probably not a lot of other work that we'll be focusing on that we would bring to a meeting anyway. So once we've finalised the timetable, I'll start to cancel some of those meetings where we've got no staff will be available to hold committee meetings, and so expect that to come. And the same will be true of subcommittee meetings. That's why we'll be getting through most of the position papers by the 11th of May meeting. So I will keep you informed of that, but I don't want to do anything quite yet because the court hasn't confirmed our timetable. And the other thing is that following this meeting.
Sorry, Joe, sorry to interrupt, Joe. So just before you go on, the practice has been in the past that between Joe and myself, we make a judgment if there's not enough material on the agenda for the meeting, then as chair, I can cancel the meeting. I think that's what Joe was indicating. So it's possible that the 11th of May, for instance, meeting might not be necessary. That's judgment we will make.
Definitely have the 11th of May, but after that it will change.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Carry on, Joe.
Just a reminder that there's a separate meeting invitation for the following subcommittee meeting. So this meeting will close down, and then in fact you might want to, Doug, are you still there? Is Kaya there? Kaya, can you just make sure that I'll send you that invitation, that you can just set it up and then leave the room? If that's right.
So for those who are online, this link will close and you'll refresh into another one. Yeah.
Into the next meeting.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Darryl, you had a comment under general business?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Joint committee members, I'd just like to draw your attention to the RMA Replacement Act process. So the government's official position is that they would like to have those RMA replacement acts passed into law through third reading. It's currently at select committee and not due to come out for at least another month or 6 weeks, and then a second and third reading. But the government's stated intention is still to pass that into law before election. There is some speculation whether that's going to be possible given how the cabinet agenda and legislative agenda has been disrupted by world events, etc. But if we stick to that timetable, the first, if I can use the term, cab off the rank under those replacement acts is for each region of New Zealand to undertake a regional spatial plan exercise, which is a Schedule 1 type process. Now, I just want to make sure that you're aware that there are some very tight timeframes around that. That spatial planning process, I think, has, Matt, 18 months from January of 2021. Very, very tight timeframes to be completed as a spatial plan for each region. Under the existing first reading and in select committee, the provisions of the replacement acts call for the formation of a regional spatial planning committee to be formed within local government in a region. Our council have been briefed on this, and it would make sense, although there's been no formal decisions obviously made, that the TTPP Joint Committee also undertakes that work if it's passed into law, because that would make sense. So we would need to bring, if it does pass into law, some recommendations through the councils and into this committee on that matter. Can I just also say that while that sounds rather daunting as another planning process, another plan that we've got to do, and the costs and those sorts of things, and I don't discount that, what I can tell you is that of all the regions, and I've set aside the unitaries in New Zealand, of all the regions in New Zealand that have a regional council and district and cities within them, the West Coast Regional Council is the most prepared and will be most easily able, sorry, that's probably not a good term, best prepared to actually undertake that regional spatial planning exercise, given the fact that we have a harmonised one district plan for the region. Because could you imagine trying to do that in Canterbury, for instance, with all those district and city councils in Canterbury, and trying to harmonise that? So look, that's what is going to need to be done. I bring it to your attention just as a heads up, because we need to wait to see if it passes into law, or in fact gets through second and third reading. What I would suggest or recommend to the mayors is that you ask your planning staff to perhaps update you and your councillors around what that is. There's information in the domains out there at the moment about a regional spatial plan, and some advice streams up through your lines would be advantageous. And then we can perhaps come together over the next few months when we've got a clear direction about how we want to proceed. But I just want to say it would make sense that the Regional Spatial Planning Committee that would need to be formed would be this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any quick comments or questions, Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Look, thank you for that, Daryl. I think we're all aware of this. I know, as you indicated, just another whole planning process, but we know it's coming up. We know it has to be done. I personally think that your idea, as discussed this morning, is probably as good as one that I've heard. And moving forward, I know it'll be a mayors and chairs discussion, but it seems to make a lot of sense to me. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor. Anything else? No? Thank you. I'll close this meeting and we will start the subcommittee meeting in, say, 10 minutes' time. Get a quick cuppa if necessary. Just remind those online that there's a fresh link required. Thank you. See you shortly.
Excuse me.